This is Screen Junkies Movie Fights, brought to you by Nature Box. Now your host, Andy Signor.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like... It worked! Hello, I'm Alicia Malone. Welcome to another very special edition of Movie Fights, our second ever classic film fights. And I'm alive. I'm alive with excitement for classic movies and so excited that I get to talk about them here today. And we have some amazing fights coming up for you soon, including which classic film director would have the best career if they were working today? What is the best decade ever for movies? And what about the best song and dance number from any musical? This is going to be tough to judge, particularly when you see the incredible intelligence I have on the panel. First up, she is the boss lady at Screen Junkies News. She's so smart, she makes the HAL 9000 look like a hunk o' junk. Say hello to my little friend, Roth Cornett.
Hello, little indeed. I am so happy, excited, intimidated, and a little bit terrified to be here today, and I think we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, well, he is making his Movie Fights debut. We feel like very, very lucky punks to have with us today the esteemed film critic, the author of the movie guides we all grew up reading, and the host of Moulton on Movies podcast on the Nerdist Network. Here is Mr. Leonard Moulton.
Oh, thank you.
Yay.
Thank you for that ovation. That's lovely. I'm very flattered and I'm very happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. And she is our very own Hildy Johnson. You've seen her hosting on Screen Junkies News, on TV Talk, on Collider, on Schmoes Know, on FX Movie Download. She's smart, she's sassy, she's strong. Here's Sacha Pearl Raver.
She's getting in her last minute cramming. Oh, thank goodness. I feel so much smarter having read Mr. Moulton's book. Mr. Moulton, who was my college film professor, I took his class 4 times. So this would be the quietest I have ever been in any sort of movie fight because I'm just going to say what he said.
I can't wait.
Yes. Moulton is always right.
We also have another special guest. She's on the couch. She goes up to 11. She's also a co-host on Moulton on Movies on the Nerdist Network. Jessie Moulton.
Hey.
Now, I always depend on the kindness of strangers, so I'm going to be asking you for your help with some of the rulings on this.
I'm here for you.
Thank you.
And most importantly, I'm here to remind all of you that my dad is wrong constantly. This is the time, ladies. Stand up and tell him. So it's not just me and my mom all the time. Tell him how wrong he is.
Oh, I cannot wait to get into this. But before we do, let me just nip over here because we need to thank our sponsor, ta-da, Nature Box. Today's episode, can you hold this one? Is brought to you by Nature Box. Nature Box makes snacks that actually taste great and are better for you, created with high quality ingredients that are free from artificial colors, flavors, or sweeteners, so you can feel great about snacking. There are over 100 snacks to choose from, like aged cheddar lentil loops or mini Belgian waffles, yum, that are delivered right to your door. And subscribers can order as much as you want, as often as you want, with no minimum purchase required, and you can cancel anytime. Thank you, Nature Box. Woo! Okay.
So delicious, it's almost tipping me over.
Now,
Sasha, share the book, please.
Yeah, do you need some cramming too?
I need some cramming too.
well, now I need to shut up and deal. Fighters, it's all about the most compelling argument, not which is my personal choice. And you know what? I just want to have fun today. You know, I want to give these movies the platform that they deserve and hopefully ignite some passion in people watching. That's what I hope. There's no crying in baseball, but sometimes there is in movie fights. So let's get into it with round 1. The question is, which classic film director would have the best career in Hollywood today? And who's on first? It's Roth.
Really?
Roth,
Yeah.
are you ready?
Good. Thank
Take
you
it away.
very much. Okay. I'm prepared to learn everything today, including if I'm wrong about this. But my pick is one of my favorite directors, who is Alfred Hitchcock. Probably a lot of people's favorite directors. But the reason that I went with him is because I think there are analogs today that you can compare to him and say that he would, in fact, have a successful career today. A lot of times it would be easy to say that you would just get a shooter, right? Somebody who could work with Marvel and things like that to have a career today. I say nay. We would look to David Fincher as an analog for Hitchcock and say that he could have a career today and a successful one at that, or Christopher Nolan and say that he could have a successful career today. He did great box office. The continued success of the suspense and horror genre tells me that he would be fruitful today as he was in his day. And in addition to that, he was a really savvy marketer and businessman. He not only knew how to market his own films, but he knew how to market himself, which is, I think, a key ingredient to succeeding in today's environment. If you look at Psycho alone, it was made for $800,000, made $40 million, which with inflation would be $400 million today. So his films were hugely successful. In addition to that, he was unafraid. I'm going to just spill my whole argument here and then listen to Leonard counter me.
I like it.
In addition to that, he was unafraid of moving with the times, and we could see that with Alfred Hitchcock Presents on TV. And so referring back to Fincher, I think he would have done something innovative on Netflix the way that Fincher did with House of Cards. So my pick is Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, I like it. I like it. Okay, Leonard, you're up next. Who is your pick and why?
That's a very persuasive argument. It is. You make excellent points. I'm picking Howard Hawks because Howard Hawks not only made smart, wonderful, funny movies in every conceivable genre, but he had the audience in the palm of his hand. He was a crowd pleaser. And that's why I think he would succeed today, because it's tough. I mean, Billy Wilder, Ernst Lubitsch, Preston Sturges, we can name all these great, great filmmakers who had tough times then reaching the widest of possible audiences. And Hawks never did. In a row, he made Only Angels Have Wings, His Girl Friday, Ball of Fire, Air Force, To Have and Have Not, The Big Sleep, Red River. You know, it's staggering to look at this man's batting average. And they're smart movies, they're funny movies, they're suspenseful movies, and each one was a hit. That's why I think he would do well today, because he would fit in with the current mentality, which is, you know, not to be the individualist necessarily, but to try to find a way to transcend your individualism on the road to populism. And that's what he would do. And that's why I think he'd make it. And because he could do a Marvel movie and would do a Marvel movie. But he'd do his own Marvel movie. It would still look like his, but it would fit the genre. So I think he was very adaptable then. I think he'd be very adaptable today.
Howard Hawks Marvel movie. I'd love to see that. Sasha, what's your choice?
So my choice, I'm going to give you guys sort of this is a glimpse into my mind because I've been sort of overwhelmed by two things recently. Our political atmosphere and the fact that the holidays are coming up. So what do we see every holiday season? It's a Wonderful Life. The director I started thinking about was Frank Capra. Now here's the thing about Frank Capra. Frank Capra was actually kind of a propagandist. Like, he was all about making films that were incredibly uplifting, but if you actually look at It's a Wonderful Life, it's super depressing. It's about a man who decides that his life has gone so badly, the only thing he can do is kill himself, and then the whole rest of the film is this flash of what it would be like and just the fact that he's a better person. So on one hand, when I look at Capra's films, they're all about the triumph of the underdog, which I think is a message that in America right now we're so desperate for. But on the other hand, Frank Capra was super right-wing. Like, I feel like he would totally appeal to the creepy alt-right, and he and Mel Gibson would be broing down, making all sorts of Jesus-y propaganda movies that are still called Hacksaw Ridge or whatever you want to call them. But I think that in this climate, he would be able to make things that are message-driven, which we want. That's why Tyler Perry continues to have a career, but also speaks to his belief system. And whether I like it or not, I feel like right now what's going to happen is art is going to have to start speaking to what we believe in at our core. And whether you are on the very left or the very right, art is going to start funneling into those belief systems. And hopefully we will see some of the best filmmaking we've seen in a while, because you have to put that sort of angst into what ends up on screen and in literature. But I think Frank Capra, for all of his idealism, could have had quite the career right now.
I like it. So we have the moving with the times, we have the crowd pleaser, and we have the guy who might make incredible art that says something about the world we live in today. So it's going to be hard, but here comes open floor for counter arguments. Why do you think your choice is the better choice or would work better today?
I am only going to attack Roth.
I'll say the same.
Yes, Josie.
I'm only going to attack you.
Has anyone ever put Frank Capra and Tyler Perry in the same sentence.
I'm so Tyler Perry.
I think I need to look it up.
Yeah,
I'm
can you
fairly
fact
certain
check
this
that,
is a
Jesse?
first. Yeah, fact
for
check.
sure.
It says,
Fact
what
check.
the hell are you talking about?
Yes.
That's the immediate
I
no.
love that.
Well, but when you think about what Frank Capra did, like he also did a whole war series, like why we're fighting for around World War II. It was all of these produced films about why the fight was important, what we were trying to do. He was trying to like rabble rouse, get people involved. He enlisted. I mean, he really had like a very specific belief about what this country needed to be. I love Hitchcock, but my question to you, Roth, is I feel like we saw what he was capable. That's what happens when you chew gum on set. I feel like we saw what he's capable of, and I don't know that I want to see. I love his movies as they are. I don't know that I would want to change them.
But here's my point. Couple of things, because I'm really only going to attack Sasha.
Yeah, totally.
It's just that. Come on. Attack Leonard. Come on.
Here's my counter argument for Capra, who I love It's a Wonderful Life. That is really, truly one of my favorite films of all time. However, it was not a success in its day.
It wasn't.
So the argument here is who would have the best career today? And you're talking about a filmmaker whose most iconic film was a bomb at the time. And maybe bomb is too extreme, but it was not a success. In addition to that, you're likening him to somebody like Mel Gibson and the propaganda religious films that Mel Gibson makes, like Hacksaw Ridge, which arguably are not doing very well. And
But Braveheart.
But Braveheart was many years ago. We're talking about today. And in
Similar
addition to
theme,
that,
though.
you're kind of future projecting where the industry may go over the next 10 years. You're not talking about where the industry is at today. Whereas alternatively, if you talk about the current political climate, we might just start to see a lot of really interesting films that are subversive, that have something different to say, that are not following in line with this kind of propaganda films that we did see in the 40s, because all of America is not on the same page the way they were in the 40s. And when films like that would have been thriving. As far as Hitchcock is concerned, I think if you look at somebody like a Christopher Nolan, because he was smart and he was savvy and he was ambitious and he wanted to succeed, maybe he wouldn't do a Marvel film, but maybe he would have done a Batman series that he knew he was going to have some amount of creative control on, and then go on the way Nolan did and do the kind of films that he wanted to make.
So, Leonard, what do you think about these two choices, Hitchcock and Capra?
We think Leonard's right, by the way.
No, I think there's something in both arguments, absolutely. With Capra, you can't just look at It's a Wonderful Life. You should look at American Madness, the film he made in the early 30s about a bank failure and about a run on a bank. And Walter Houston plays this bank manager who feels personally responsible for what's going on. That's a fascinating Depression-era film. Look at Meet John Doe, which is a really strange movie with Gary Cooper, one of Capra's iconic stars, which is about a demagogue trying to take over America, and a so-called innocent everyman who tries to fight back. I mean, so that, there are lots of interesting parallels in some of his films.
Yeah.
Hitchcock, we don't know what would have been next. Because when he got older, he lost some of his sharpness, and we don't really like to look at Family Plot as an emblematic Hitchcock film. It's okay, but it's certainly not him at his peak. But he lasted a long time by being smart and by doing what you say. He not only marketed himself well, but he knew how to reach an audience and speak to an audience, even when it was Psycho, when that audience was not expecting what he was about to give them, and that was about as cutting edge as you could get. There was nothing to rival it, and it was unprecedented, and that's not an exaggeration. That film was unprecedented, and to come from a mainstream movie maker and a mainstream movie studio was just jaw-dropping.
Unprecedented.
So that's what he was capable of. So a man who was capable of that, if he were alive today and reincarnated in his prime, could probably do awfully well.
Yeah, and why do you think...
I'm countering my own
I
argument
know.
by saying that.
Why do you think Howard Hawks is the best choice of the three?
Because he had savvy.
Yeah.
He had savvy. He had versatility. He could, as I say, he could do a Western. He did a science fiction film called The Thing, which he officially produced but also sort of directed. He did romantic comedy, broad comedy, wartime dramas, Westerns, the works. There's no area of filmmaking at which he did not excel.
Yeah.
And he worked with the best stars, and they all wanted to work with him. So I think overall, at a time when, the indies are always going to have their place, but they have to fight for their spot. Some people would rise to the top and make it in the mainstream, and I still think he would have a great shot at doing that.
All right, Sasha Roth, anything to add before I ding it?
One final thing.
Yes.
Frank Capra's the only person at this table who did It Happened One Night, which won all 5 of the primary Oscar categories: picture, actor, director, actress, and screenplay. So there's that.
Do you know, every time I ding this, and Andy Signor gets his wings.
Oh, yay!
Jesse, anything to add from the argument? So what do you think made the most compelling argument to you?
I'm really happy I'm over here on the couch.
I know.
You guys are intense. It's very impressive.
So smart.
I think, honestly, that because these are all directors that I don't think anybody would argue are the best, it's really hard to choose, which I realize is the point. But I don't know. I don't know, you guys. These are all really, really good answers.
I know. It's
And
like
you have to
splitting
pick, and
hairs.
I don't, so there.
I know. Well, Houston, we have a problem because I have to pick a winner.
With
and
great power.
With great power
Yes.
comes lots of responsibility, or whatever that is. Yes, this is hard because you all made great points. I love, Roth, how you talked about Hitchcock really being an innovator and moving with the times. I love, Leonard talking about how he did so many genres, Howard Hawks, and he could have such a great career today because he could do anything, including a Marvel movie. And Sasha, I really like what you say about Frank Capra, the Oscars, as well as possibly being someone with something to say, and particularly when Leonard brings up the older films as well. I think that sounds like an interesting parallel. But just because he made the point about the Marvel movie and the multi-genre, and I think it's true that Howard Hawks might have the best career today working in populist films. Leonard gets the point.
Yay! Wow. All the points in it.
I just showed up. I just showed up for this. My goodness.
I'm telling
No,
you guys,
don't
you're
worry.
going to spoil him, and then I have to deal with this.
Don't worry. We've got lots of fights left. Round 2 is a tricky question. What is the best pre-1980 animated film? What is the best pre-1980 animated film? And Leonard, you go first. What is your choice?
Can I change my choice that I gave you
Sure.
ahead of time?
Do it.
Pinocchio.
Pinocchio.
Well, there goes my entire.
That was
Oh, yeah, sorry,
my
ladies.
counter argument
Because
is
I originally was going to say Dumbo because Dumbo is my personal favorite. It's the one that I actually love the most. But Pinocchio, which I also love, is the most ambitious of the classic films that Walt Disney made, with the possible exception of Fantasia, which was wildly ambitious. But Pinocchio, being the second feature after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, has such dense storytelling, is so complex emotionally. I mean, it's a very dark film. It's a very, very dark film, and nightmare stuff, truly. And yet it's telling a supposedly lighthearted story about a little wooden puppet who wants to be a real boy, and his father, his surrogate father, who wants to be a real father to the real boy. But I mean, it has such incredible action sequences, such incredible heart-tugging sequences, some, as I say, nightmare moments, as on Pleasure Island, when the little boy named Lampwick turns into a donkey. It's one of the scariest sequences ever made in a movie. And Walt Disney did all of that, plus advancing the actual art of animation in the process. It was innovative in every possible way, in terms of visual storytelling, in terms of the techniques that they used with the multiplane camera, in terms of integrating music into, seamlessly integrating music into the storytelling, all of that. And so that would be my choice.
Alrighty, good choice. Sasha, what's your choice?
My choice, and this is just purely on a personal level, is Lady and the Tramp. Lady and the Tramp was a film that I saw when I was very, very young, and it resonated with me in this really deep way because I feel like if you are an animal lover, I am somebody who has fur babies and not real babies. There is something about going into that world, and similarly, it shows so many different depths of emotion. Like you get to see the pain of being an unwanted dog in the pound. You get to see the life of luxury that Lady gets to lead and how necessary she is to the family and what a member of the family she is, which is how I've always treated my pets. And it was so great to see that on screen. But then you also have this beautiful romantic tale where it's permeated our culture in a way that is so iconic. The spaghetti kiss. Do you know what I would do to have a man nudge a meatball across a plate? That's like all I want in life. But it also has music by Peggy Lee, which is so great, and Siamese cats, launching my obsession with Siamese cats. I used to just walk around my house going, "We are Siamese, if you please." See, this is why Lady and the Tramp is so good, because it gets a bunch of kids to sing.
If you don't please.
It's a little anti-cat.
It is anti-cat, but it's very pro-dog. And if you actually look at the marketing for the movie, the way they marketed the film was, if you've ever had a dog, if you've ever wanted a dog, or if you've ever loved a dog. And the fact that Walt Disney understood the anthropomorphic adoration that people would have for Dumbos, for Pinocchios, and decided to put that into Lady and the Tramp. It's also just such a beautiful story. And I feel like the message of family in all forms is really important. And that's why I love Lady and the Tramp.
I think you get extra
And like
points.
La La Land, it's in CinemaScope.
Yes, CinemaScope. Oh my god, that made me so happy. La La Land, CinemaScope. So great. Anthropomorphic. I can never say that word, but I congratulate you for putting that in.
Yeah.
Extra points. Extra points. Russ, what's your choice?
Wow, this is so tough. You guys are really good at this. Not surprisingly, this is very difficult because all of those films are great. I love that. I love Lady and the Tramp, and I love your argument for it as an animal lover. And as somebody who was bullied as a kid, you can't help but love Dumbo. But Pinocchio, like, no one's more obsessed with AI and what it is to be human than me. So I would concede, except I have Fantasia. Which is
Great choice.
Such a beautiful film. And talk about ambitious. I mean, this film was both technologically innovative and creatively innovative. You know, they were inventing new ways to do sound for this movie. This is the first time we heard sound the way we've heard it in this movie. It was expensive. Necessity was the mother of invention. They had The Sorcerer's Apprentice as a short film, and it was getting more and more expensive. So they said, we need to make a feature. What do we do? And they created this beautiful piece of art that is like a living piece of art. Fantasia is like no other film in that it continues to evolve. It changes and it grows and it morphs with time. And not only that, it's probably the only movie of all these three that if you are a film student, we should see all of these. But you should absolutely see this because it examines what it is to tell story visually. It examines what it is to tell a story as a film. It gives you 8 different examples of what that could be, and some of them are just abstract interpretations of music. That's madness for a Disney film to do that. They would never do that today, but they did, and eventually it made money.
But it's not the beginning.
Right, open
And that's
forum.
why they needed Dumbo,
Well-
because they needed to recoup the expenses. I mean, I watched Fantasia like 5 million times when I was a child. My only argument against that would be it's more a series of shorts than it is a full film. And Pinocchio is beautiful, but I think the thing that Lady and the Tramp does better than Pinocchio is Pinocchio does go so dark and does get so scary that I feel like the message at times can be lost because you're lost in the emotion of it. And the thing about Lady and the Tramp that I thought they did so well was they were able to still give you story, give you message, give you all the feels. And there is trepidation and there is fear and there is sense of loss. But at the end of it, I feel like it was never undigestible to me, not as an adult, not as a child. And when you're looking at animated films, you do have to look at them from the perspective both as a child and as an older person, because they are kind of made for us, but not entirely. And I think that the one that for children is the one that will have the most resonance, is the one with the cute animals.
Well, yeah. I mean, of the three, it's the most lovable movie. It's the lightest of these three, and it's the most lovable. No question there. But the question was, what's the best? And of course, that's so
Splitting
much.
heads, yeah.
So much a matter of opinion. And when you're talking about Disney classics, you know,
Yeah.
They're all the best.
they're all the best. Exactly.
I mean, we didn't even get into Sleeping Beauty or Cinderella. I mean, there's a million other things we could have talked about.
Yeah.
Bambi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, but Bambi and Dumbo have the same issue, which is they're so upsetting.
No,
Oh
that's
my
not
God.
a bad thing.
That opening in Bambi.
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing
Well,
to evoke emotion.
Well, that's what Walt Disney believed, and that's what's so interesting about him. And there's so many things that are interesting about him, is that he was not afraid to go dark. And I think, and he seemed to understand, he was not an educated man, never went to college, but he had great instincts, superb instincts. And he always believed that he was his audience. He didn't need focus groups, he was his audience. And he knew that you kind of like Capra in It's a Wonderful Life, you have to show the dark if the light is going to have any meaning. So it's only by putting us through a kind of catharsis, as he does in Bambi, as he does in Dumbo, as he does in so many films, that you earn the right to have that happy ending. That the happy ending has real meaning, real significance. And no one has ever forgotten, no one has ever seen Bambi has ever forgotten that moment in Bambi.
So upsetting.
And no one has ever...
But I have to say, I feel similarly
So
about
sad.
Dumbo when
Yeah.
his mother is chained up and
Oh,
they're just like
gosh.
touching drugs. And, I had good arguments against Dumbo. I don't have good arguments against Pinocchio.
I know. It's hard. It's really hard. Jesse, anything to add?
I'm just over here weeping.
Yes.
It's the same thing for me. It's just like, it's so upsetting. I can't do this.
I know, it's so sad.
I don't know. I would go with Fantasia just because I'm also an animal lover, and we do have fur babies. And it's the only one that doesn't make me want to run and hide under something because I'm crying so hard.
Because she doesn't have ostriches and hippos at home. So
Not yet.
Yeah, right. Hanukkah is upon us, Daddy.
And they better dance.
Yeah.
I want them now, Daddy.
I have a million tutus. Why shouldn't my hippos have the same?
I agree.
I ask you.
I agree. Well, here's another nice mess you've gotten me into
Yeah.
because it's all amazing arguments. But I have to pick one. And I have to say that I really liked, all of them, obviously. They're not afraid to go dark so that light has meaning. That's so beautiful and something I'm going to try to remember. I love, Sasha, that you want a man to nudge an meatball towards you. Plus also what you said about fur babies, and I think it's so true that we all connected to that movie. But I liked Roth's argument about Fantasia being so beautiful, ambitious, and a piece of art. So for that reason, Roth gets the point. Yay! So the leaderboard is
well earned.
Ralph with 1, Leonard with 1. Round 3. Still lots of opportunities to go. What is the best song and dance number from any musical?
Oh,
I'm
yes,
looking
and by
forward
the
to
way,
this
thanks
one.
for such an easy question.
I know. From all the musicals in the world.
Yeah. That was no problem whittling it down to one.
I know.
No problem at all.
And you have to say the best, It's like
Yeah.
officially
Yeah,
the best.
yeah,
Joking.
right.
Joking. What is your
Yeah.
personal favorite, we should say? Sasha, start with you.
Well, I will say, being asked this question got me, my mom, and my dad skipping down a street singing "We're Off to See the Wizard" because we were thinking about that, but that's not actually a dance, that's a skip.
Yeah.
But the answer, I feel like, to this question is Singing in the Rain. Singing in the Rain, from Singing in the Rain, Gene Kelly, who has come home from, or he's leaving a date, he's dropping off the just luminous Debbie Reynolds.
Oh.
And he's so happy after spending time with her, and they kiss. He sort of pushes his chauffeured car off. He's like, go, go, go. It's dumping rain, and it's that amazing fake movie rain, so it's much heavier and colder than real rain. And he starts singing about how he doesn't even feel the rain because he's just in such a great place. And he's singing and dancing in the rain on the tops of stoops, under like gutters that are dumping on him, doing these incredible sort of Chaplin-esque swirls with his umbrella. It was choreographed by Gene Kelly. He also co-directed the movie. It is him. I mean, this is a man who is just one of the true greats of all time. And I cannot think of him in a more prime moment in his career. But it's also something that has, the iconography of that has permeated our culture in such a beautiful way. Now, whenever there is a puddle, I want to jump in it and stomp in it the way he does right before the police officer comes up and sort of eyes him as if to say, are you drunk? What are you doing? Yeah. But it's also that wonderful childlike exuberance that I think we all want to feel when we find love. That the physical embodiment, which is what great song and dance should do, that's what's so great about La La Land, is that it takes the emotion that you can't put into word and puts it into physical movement and puts it into song. And Singing in the Rain, combining physical movement of Gene Kelly, his beautiful singing voice, and also the outside effect of the rain, the actual like crazy torrential rain, is just everything you want in like a beautiful Hollywood moment. And it's so obviously a backlot that it's shot on. And there's something about that makes me love it even more.
Yeah.
Because there is just a classic beauty to it, and I just think it's the best. That's my answer.
I love the light moment in La La Land as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. To that. So, Russ, what is your choice?
I'm next. Okay, so I'm very nervous about this one because, as you say, there's so many you could pick from. You could do America easily from West Side Story, which was what I was going to do. But I went with a film that I don't think Leonard likes very much, so it makes me especially nervous. But it's All That Jazz. And again, this is sort of, you were talking about with Lady and the Tramp. This is more personal imprinting on you at an early age. I remember watching Kiss Me Kate with my mom, and this number came on, and I was so young, and I said, "Who is that? That's different than anybody else." And it was Fosse. And when I saw All That Jazz, to me, I feel like you see the culmination of his career and growing up doing musicals in the heyday of Hollywood and understanding what they mean and turning them on their head a little bit and exploring truly the darker side of entertainment. And that kind of, it's the opposite of Singing in the Rain in that way. It is the pathos and is really murky emotions and self-hatred even playing out in this film, an obsession with death. I mean, he's in love with death, played by Jessica Lange in this movie.
Hottest death around.
Yeah, beautiful. But this moment, I think it's, to me, it is him understanding the medium enough to play with it and take it to a new place. And it is really messy and it is really imperfect, but it is also arguably, other than Jaws, Roy Scheider's crowning achievement. Like, why didn't he blow up and become the biggest movie star in the world after this movie? Mm-hmm. And why is this movie so underrated? It hits me right in my gut. I just feel like it speaks to the place in me that I understand that wrestles with that which nourishes you also destroys you, that wrestles with bad feelings about yourself, that wrestles with your own egomania, and it puts it all there and is totally vulnerable on the screen, and it doesn't hold anything back. And that deserves accolades in my mind. That deserves to be there just as much as the song and dance numbers that happily celebrate the brighter side of life.
Oh, I like it. Leonard, what's your choice?
So I have to just say, when I saw All That Jazz for the first time, it was at a press screening in New York at Cinema One, which I don't think is there anymore, on 3rd Avenue. And I noted it had two kind of entrances, and my wife and I were sitting over on the side, and I noticed that Bob Fosse was there.
Whoa!
Sort of watching the audience, keeping an eye on the audience over in this little alleyway kind of leading into the theater. I thought, God, if we don't applaud at the end, he's going to kill himself. It really made me nervous. Yeah. And I love things in that movie. I love the parts better than the whole. Some moments in that film are just, incredible, just incredible. But I don't love the movie as a whole. Mm-hmm. And of course, Singing in the Rain is just about my favorite movie ever. So, and it's singing, with an apostrophe.
Singing.
But I chose one of the numbers that I love best is by Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. And watching them together just takes my breath away. Mm. There's a reason they were among the biggest stars of the 1930s. There's a reason that they became such an indelible team. There's a reason that their names are forever linked together. And one of those reasons is that their best song numbers tell a story. They tell a story through song and dance. And my favorite is Pick Yourself Up from Swing Time, 1936. It's about a guy who pretends not to know how to dance, who comes to a dance school and wants Ginger to be his teacher. And that's how the song begins. Please, teacher, teach me something. And then, of course, she catches on that he actually can dance just fine. And they go on and they have this exuberant dance with the most wonderful finish where they're twirling each other around, and there's a little low kind of gate around the dance floor area, and they swirl over it and both leap over this little fence. at the end and exit in triumph. Ah, be still my heart. So there's so many great numbers to choose from, but that's my favorite.
So, Roth, Sasha, what do you think about your choice compared to Leonard's choice?
I mean, it's very difficult to argue.
They're all very different from each other, obviously.
Let us stare into Ginger Roberts.
But you have to.
Singing in the Rain, which is, again, probably the greatest musical of all time. But I'll make this one argument about Singing in the Rain, is that, of course, that's the song that is the most iconic, and it's, the titular song. But I love Good Morning. I think that's the better number.
Good morning. This is a very musical episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that number, and it's the three of them together.
What's not to love?
Yeah, it's
What's not to
fantastic.
love? It's the three of them together, and they've got to be choreographed together, and there's a synchronicity to it. And I remember watching a documentary in which Debbie Reynolds was saying, like, the poor girl
They did
was
it
like
so many
19.
times, right?
They did it so many times, and her feet were about to fall off,
And then they
she's
used like
still.
one of the first takes.
But that's why I would
These are the
say
first
the
takes.
thing that's so incredible about Gene Kelly's performance in that
He had a
scene is
fever.
that he's alone, and to be that captivating solo, where it's you, an umbrella, a light post, and a whole bunch of dumping rain, that says a lot about a performer. And I mean, Fred and Ginger, come on. I mean, it's just beyond. My only thing is I would say for a Fred Astaire moment, I think Royal Wedding is a little bit more like one of those ones that really like shifted all of cinema. Like that's something that everyone can think of, and they've done, I think, Pepsi commercials sort of as homages to it. Not that that's what should be held up in esteem, but I think that with Singing in the Rain, when you also have somebody, we know what happens when an actor has total control. Things can go really badly. They can become megalomaniacal and dig their own grave.
Yeah.
And Gene Kelly had so much control on that film, and that's what we got. Come on.
I just
final thoughts?
want to say, and because I realized that in setting this up for my very personal, this movie imprinted on me, as did this artist, I did not set up what all that jazz is about at all, which is a very personal story about Bob. It's about Bob Fosse. It's about himself having a heart attack, and it's about his own career. And it's extremely, whether you like him or not, and he doesn't make himself very likable in the movie.
He's very harsh on himself.
He's very harsh on himself, but I think that's also very real and very human. And I think that if you look at how innovative he was as an artist, both in terms of direction of this film and the sequence itself, even the music and how layered it is, this really stands up as something extraordinary that built upon
I hope
these
more
other
people
giants.
see it because I know you're passionate about
I
it.
am.
Ding! Jesse, what do you think about these arguments?
Oh man, I went to school for musical theater, and I'm a musical theater nerd. And our house is musical land. We're always singing. We're always walking around singing.
Can I come over?
You should see Malton over there when he gets into it. Again, it's hard. All of these questions, because you're talking about a subject where it's sort of like there's no right.
Yeah.
They're just all fantastic.
Yeah. What would you choose if you had posed this question?
It's hard.
Do you have a favorite that you love?
So my favorite movie in general is Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, but that's because my dad started showing me that when I was 3 years old. And I'm not saying that brainwashing is a good way to go, but he was pretty successful, I have to say.
Well, it's her mother's all-time favorite movie.
Yeah,
love that.
so I had two brainwashers. But yeah, the thing about Singing in the Rain is that I can't think of anything better as a film. My favorite number from it is Make 'Em Laugh, because I have the world's biggest crush on Donald O'Connor, which is creepy, because that started when I was also like 3. It's a little bit awkward when you're like 5 years old and you're running over going, "I love you, marry me." But I can't choose.
Yeah,
it's
it's
the same
so
type of
hard.
thing.
I want to
It's
hear
so
more
hard.
I want to hear more from you.
Well, I mean,
just on the
what's
top
to say, one of the things about Singing in the Rain, by the way, that people don't point out, they all know it, they all realize it, it's one of the best comedies ever made.
So funny.
Oh yeah.
It's an extremely funny film written by two of the great comedy writers of all time, Betty Comden and Adolph Green, who wrote that screenplay based on an assignment. The assignment was find a clothesline on which we can hang all of these songs, which were written years ago by the producer of the film, Arthur Freed, and his songwriting partner, Nacio Herb Brown. So that was like, well, how do we today they call them jukebox musicals on Broadway, but that's what that was. It was kind of the first jukebox musical. How do we make a coherent story? And then they came up with the answer. Let's set the film at the time the songs were written.
Yeah.
around the time the songs were written, the late 20s, early 30s. And they cracked that problem and then gave us this glorious movie.
I love it. Here we are, sunset in Camden.
I want to hang out with the Maltons all the time.
I know. Can we?
We know how to party. That's all I'm saying.
Musical theater night at the mall.
I mean, what is it that you guys want? Do you want the moon? I can't give you that, but I can give Sasha the point. Sasha gets the point. Just because I love the way you were talking about Singing in the Rain, having that childlike exuberance, that childlike love that you feel when you are first in love. And I think that really comes across, particularly in that moment. But like we were saying, all the choices are so good. Ross, I love the fact that you're talking about it being about Bob Fosse's life and about the pathos. I think that's really important, and that's something you don't see that often in the musical numbers. So that's a good one. And Fred and Ginger, I love that scene in particular, that song and those two together. Oh, heaven. So now we're all tied up as we go into round 4.
Ding, ding.
Ding, ding.
This is so fun.
All right, another tough question coming your way. Which classic film remains the most relevant in 2016? Roth, we are back to you first.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. So I went with Network. Which we were talking about this earlier, and it's like, where's the dividing line in terms of chronology for classic films? But I would say that Network is a classic film at this point, certainly. If I could do a night, invite everybody to a triple movie night, it would be Citizen Kane, All the President's Men, and Network to say, let's think about how we do media, people. But Network to me is the one that remains absolutely, was certainly prescient, right? And everybody knows that now, but it still remains true, and nothing really has changed. It's just gotten more and more true.
It's gotten worse.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Network has gotten more predictive of the future as time has gone on. The more outrageous moments of that movie become more and more our reality. And I will give you an example. The other day I saw a tweet from CBS News that was sending you to a Facebook Live video of someone about to jump to his death.
No!
Yes.
Oh, God.
And
That
it
really
was
happened?
that really happened. The other day, it was a murder suspect in Los Angeles who was on top of a building.
Ugh.
And it was a Facebook Live video, and I thought, this is why I went with Network.
Yeah.
I thought this movie could not be more true at this point, which is that if we look at sort of where our culture is at, it is the escalation of the extreme. There is no more rational discourse, right? There is only the chasing ratings, sure, but the more extreme point of view. And I think that we've seen that permeate throughout our entire culture, media and out, but certainly it's in the media, and no movie captures that more beautifully, humorously, and with more pathos again than I think Network.
Yeah.
And let's
choice.
name Patty Chayefsky, who wrote it.
Oh my good God.
Oh, God.
Just,
Great script. Lena, what's your choice?
My choice is Metropolis,
Yeah.
Fritz Lang's incredible science fiction film from 1926 from Germany. Now, a lot of people say silent movies.
No.
Well, this almost transcends the term silent movie. Talk about being prescient. It is a movie about the future, about a future city in which the workers, the drone-like workers, toil underground for the pleasure and the fruits of their labor to the upper classes who live above in great luxury and in great modern splendor. And if you've ever seen clips from the movie, which a lot of people have who haven't even seen the movie, it's startling. It looks like the Jetsons in a way, but only more real and more vivid in its depiction of what a future city might look like, with flying cars and all sorts of accoutrements of modern living, ultra modern living, but at a price. And that's what this film gets into. What is the price, and is the price worth it? Does the means justify the end? There's a mad scientist. There's a lady robot. There are all sorts of fascinating things in this film, which has only recently been restored to its full length, or near full length. It was not a success when it came out. It cost so much money, lost so much money, that the studio that produced it, UFA in Berlin, started trimming it right away, trying to make it more palatable to audiences then. Then it was sold to the US for American release, and they trimmed it more. And now through a lot of hard work and the circumstance of finding one scratchy old print in Brazil, no, Argentina, that they're able to bring the film back to pretty much what it must have been like when it was first debuted. It's an astonishing movie in every way.
It really is. The images still stick with me. Plus, I feel like I'm at film school right now, so I'm really happy. I'm super excited about this episode. Guys, kind of nerding out. Sasha, what's your choice?
My choice is The Candidate. So you've got Robert Redford at the height of his powers, if I dare say. And essentially what happens is his father is a politician. He wants to get into politics. He enters a senatorial race where basically they're like, there's no way you're going to win. This other guy's going to win. But you can come in and you can say whatever you want. And he's like, great. So he starts campaigning and suddenly starts actually sort of gaining momentum by saying what he actually truly believes, and ends up winning the Democratic nomination because he's running unopposed. And then as they start doing more polls, they're like, oh, wait, nope, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose really, really badly. You're gonna embarrass yourself. You have to start homogenizing yourself. You have to start speaking to everyone. And he starts really like muting down his message. And there's a line where they say, they talk about selling themselves like they're selling deodorant. And it's about sort of the test marketing of American politics. And it keeps going. And as he gets less and less of who he truly is, he starts gaining more and more popularity. And at the start of the movie, there is this great scene where he's like in a mall and he's about to do a speech and nobody's really paying attention to him, and there's all this feedback on the mic. And as it keeps going, more and more people start showing up to the rallies and more people start getting behind him. And at the end of the film, spoiler, he wins, and he's flooded by his father, who's so proud of him. He's like, you're a politician, and by all of these reporters. And Robert Redford is sort of like going through this hotel, and he's with his political strategist buddy, and they like get to a hotel room, and he just looks completely shell-shocked, and he looks at his buddy, and he goes, what do we do now? And he says it twice, and the door opens, and all these reporters come in, and you're left in this empty hotel room with a sense of dread, because you realize that this guy wanted the attention, he wanted his father's love, he wanted to win, but he has no effing clue what to do.
Oh,
and I can't think of anything that is more relevant in 2016.
Oh, you gave me chills. You've got a great way of telling a story too, Sasha.
Yeah.
So, open forum. What do you guys think about each other's choices?
I love The Candidate.
I think they're great choices. They're great choices. Each one's for all the reasons that you've brought up. The Candidate seems like a documentary. It seems like a cinema. It was shot. Michael Ritchie shot it like a cinema verite documentary, as if it was just really happening, and there happened to be actors there, and very, very effective. And Network, as you say, the combination of Paddy Chayefsky and a brilliant screenplay, and Sidney Lumet, great director, and a top-notch cast. These are great movies, and they do foretell the future in which we're now living.
Yeah, there's actually a moment in Network that I love so much, which it's so creepy. But when he's screaming like, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it," he says, "Go to your windows and start doing it." And in the Network office, they start going, "Are they yelling in Philadelphia? They're yelling in Philadelphia. Are they yelling in Arkansas? They're yelling." And that's like early tweets.
Yeah.
Like, there is this groundswell.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think, like, these are, you can't argue with these choices.
I know, they're all really good choices.
Because I almost went with Metropolis, because I think also just in terms of the economic and the class system that Metropolis is examining is more and more relevant today. And the only reason that I didn't go with Metropolis is because I was like, if I think about our very complicated world, it's a movie that I think tries to find simple answers to very complicated problems. And I don't know if that works. And also, I don't know if that actually captures kind of the more and more heady and complex and intricate reality that we live in. But it's such a great movie, and it does really apply, and everybody should see it. And The Candidate, as you know, I love that movie too. But he actually becomes more... He gets closer to winning the less he's himself. And that's the opposite of what we're seeing today, the more outrageous the language the certain people have used, the more popular they become. And that's actually, to me, more baked in network, which is that this is about an imagined TV network, if you guys don't know. And a man says, an anchor who's just his career is falling apart, he's about to be let go, he says, I'm going to kill myself on TV. Now, as we know, that did happen. This was started, he was writing it before that. But instead of saying, let's get you to a hospital, you need some help, or let's just let you go, or whatever, the cruel thing to do would be, let's give you your own show and just have you be more and more insane each and every week. And the more and more escalated and insane it becomes, the more and more popular it becomes, and the more people just want to eat it up, until the very thing that he was advocating for, which was railing against the constraints of society, he falls into, because he believes he gets high on his own supply, and he believes the externalized version of himself, which we all do every time we go on Facebook and we put our highlights reel out for the world to see. It's just, nothing is more true today than network. Nothing.
Well, here's my one thing I would say. Yes, he starts saying what he's told to say, but we don't really know where the truth lies in our president-elect. And what they constantly hit in the candidate is market testing, market testing. This is how people are reacting to you.
Nobody's controlling that person. Come on.
We don't know. All I'm saying is, what do we do now?
And isn't Peter Boyle great as the campaign manager?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
All these films deserve a rewatch. Ding, I don't know how I'm going to judge this one. Jesse, any help?
I would go with Network. The Candidate is an incredible film. It's a knockout. I grew up at Entertainment Tonight because my dad started there before I was born.
I remember watching it.
My entire life, for 30 years, was Entertainment Tonight. And so growing up in that, Network, obviously, we're talking about things that are personal. Network is sometimes too real for me, and that's what I would go with, because it's not specific enough. The Candidate obviously applies to us all right now, but Network to me is just sort of that's global.
Yeah,
that's a global thing that's going on.
You
for
know,
all
if
of
it
us.
bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So this is a really, really hard choice. They're all obviously brilliant films, and all movies that I think we should rewatch, particularly in this year and next year. Definitely. I am going to go with Roth and Network, because you all brought up amazing points. I thought, Roth, you have such passion about it, and talking about the highlight reel, talking about how it's predictive, talking about the CBS tweet the other day. I think you really illustrated your argument so well. So Roth has a point. So one for Sasha, one for Leonard, two for Roth. And now we come into round 5. Whew, I know. I think I'm sweating. I'm glad it's black and white. You can't see. Can't see it because it's hard. I'm judging here. You're
doing a great job judging.
All right.
Have you seen Christine? Can I just say that really quick?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Hell of a
I thought
movie.
it was great. Yeah. It's like watching
Rebecca
a car
Hall,
accident.
As the real life. There's also a documentary about the real life Christine, which I've not yet seen.
Kate plays Christine. Have you seen that one
I've
as
not
well?
seen it
That's
yet.
it. Really good.
That's what I hear.
Experimental.
But Christine is an extraordinary film that people ought to see. It was a under-released, under-promoted movie this past year, 2016, and it really ought to be seen. Not like medicine, that's good for you. It's just a fascinating film with a great performance by Rebecca Hall, who's always terrific.
She was
and this
amazing.
is a great showcase for her. And everybody else in it is awfully good, too. And they capture the period and the feel of that time at a small-town TV station, Sarasota, Florida. And what happens to this unfortunate woman.
And it was weird because it was sort of ramping for a little, like some Oscar buzz, and then somehow, I think just because it didn't get enough money on
it's
release.
Small, it's hard to campaign against the bigger ones.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it at Sundance and just being like, Rebecca Hall deserves an Oscar nomination. She transformed completely. One of those movies where you know the end and you're just so terrified to see it happen.
I'm crossing my fingers for her, though, because something like the Independent Spirit Awards, that's what they look at. That's exactly the type of thing, and she's always good. She's so talented. So I'm hoping.
I hope so too.
Well, this is totally off topic, but I really hope that Viggo Mortensen wins for Captain Fantastic.
Yeah,
because he's so great.
Another wonderful performance.
Oh, so good.
It's one of my favorites of the year. Oh, I love it so much.
Christine is connected to Network, just so it's not totally.
There was an aside, and I got excited about voting for stuff.
All right, round 5.
That was awesome.
Round 5, our last round for the speed round.
Thank God.
What is the best all-time decade for movies? It's hard to make a definitive choice, but Leonard, what is your favorite, or what are you choosing for your best?
I'm using the word favorite
Okay.
instead of best.
Yeah.
And my favorite decade is the 1930s. And again, I'm going with a personal feeling because I grew up at a time. I wasn't alive in the 30s. Just to be clear, I wasn't around in the 1930s. But in the 50s and 60s, when I was growing up, local television was flooded with old movies. And it was before we had home video, kids, and you couldn't see these films any other way. I used to set my alarm sometimes. I would force myself to go to sleep early on a school night, set my alarm for 2:15 a.m. and wake up and creep over to the TV set, not turn it on too loud so I wouldn't wake up anyone else in the house, in order to watch 20th Century with John Barrymore and Carole Lombard, a Howard Hawks movie, by the way, or other films like that I just couldn't see any other way. This decade is, people talk about 1939 as arguably the greatest year in the history of movies, Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, et cetera, down the line. But I love that whole decade. I love the films from the pre-code era, before 1934, when they were really racy and daring and did things that you don't think they did in old movies, but they did until the production code came along. They deal with real issues. People think of somehow the 1930s as just fluff and escapism, but that's not true. And you see films that deal with the Depression, and there's a musical number about the Depression. Busby Berkeley staged this incredible number with Joan Blondell and Gold Diggers of 1933 called Remember My Forgotten Man. And it's about all the guys who went over to fight in World War I, and now they can't get a job, and they're singing songs like Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? And that's a musical number. It's a fascinating decade, full of great movies. From Frankenstein, iconic movies. Frankenstein, Dracula, King Kong, Top Hat, The Adventures of Robin Hood, Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just think it has so many riches, and it's at a time when the studios were turning out 40 to 50 pictures per studio per year.
Wow.
I mean, the output is just staggering. And so I'm still discovering movies from the 30s that I've never seen before, because that's how rich and how dense, how deep it goes. So that's my favorite. I will tell you in a second my second favorite, because it's someone else's choice.
Tell us now.
I love
All
that.
right,
I love
fine.
pre-code movies. They're so
man.
fun and sassy. Sasha, what's your choice?
Oh, God. I went with the 1970s.
Yes.
And I feel like...
Which was my second choice.
Oh, good. Oh, thank God. Well, then you can take... Do you want to make the argument? Because I would love to hear your argument
You go.
for
I'll
it.
pitch in. You go ahead.
Okay, great.
You go ahead.
So
I'm
when
done.
No, it's okay. I'm going to have him answer this question. I'll just say my points to
Yes.
it. So when I think about the films that I feel like have really shaped modern cinema, I think that, of course, there are great decades across, like, since, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. But in the 70s, you've got this rise of directors like Scorsese, De Palma, Francis Ford Coppola, and also the Lucases, the Spielbergs, where cinema took on a different form. And if you look at the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, there was sort of, I won't say there was a particular, one type of filmmaking, but it didn't feel, to me, as reflective of current events as the shift that we see in the 70s. I don't think that in 1950 you get a film like Deer Hunter in the way that it was told in the 70s. Leonard, I defer to you.
Well,
Secret
I was around. I'm older than you guys. It's obviously so, and I was watching movies avidly in the 70s, and it was so exciting to know that there was another Robert Altman movie coming down the pike, because he was so prolific then, and he was at his peak.
And Cassavetes also at his peak.
Coppola, everybody. Michael Ritchie, Peter Bogdanovich. So many talents flowered in that decade. And what I find most revealing and most telling is that almost every young filmmaker I meet or have in our class or interview points to the films of the 70s. Those are their inspiration.
Sure. Yeah.
And so if the smartest people making movies today are being informed by the films of the 70s, then they're on the right track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have such an incredible selection. Like, you can go from something like a Rocky all the way across the board to, well, there's like a million things. I mean, we can go from like the Star Wars and the Rockies and the Jaws to the French Connection to the Last Picture Show.
Annie Hall,
Woody Allen. I mean, that's from my favorite film that he ever did. I just feel like when you look at those films, the ones that have shaped me as a human being and as a film lover, and who I really think are influencing the directors, producers who are coming up today, even though they keep remaking things like Ghostbusters, I think it really was the films of the 70s that have informed us and given us a different film vocabulary that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Sorry for everyone getting annoyed with me being like, yeah. I just get so excited and then I forget I'm supposed to be quiet.
No,
whatever.
This is fun.
like,
this is supposed to be
yeah,
fun.
good point.
I'm like, so now I have to fight Sasha and Leonard. That's great. So my original pick was 70s because I think there's clearly an excellent argument to be made that this is the best era of films, especially for U.S. films. But the reason I didn't go with the 70s is because you wouldn't have the 70s, and we can talk about what's going on in U.S. film in the 50s, which are some terrific films, by the way.
You're choosing the 50s.
But you're not. Yeah, I'm choosing 1950s. And the reason is you would not have those U.S. films of the 70s without the international golden age of the 50s. So if you did not have the Apu trilogy coming out of India, you would not have Scorsese, right? Like, he is influenced maybe by nobody more than, and I hate pronouncing his name, because forgive me, but Satyajit Ray. Satyajit Ray. In any event, he's an Indian filmmaker, and if you guys don't know his films, you certainly should check them out. My personal favorite is an offshoot, which is Charlotta, but that's okay. That was in the 60s. But still, the Apu trilogy was in the 50s. Then you have the start of the French New Wave, which is coming out of the end of Italian neorealism, which is stretching and reimagining what it is to even make films at the time. And you have the golden age of Asian cinema, which probably most notably, in terms of what gave us Star Wars and films of its like, is Kurosawa. Hidden Fortress was made. Throne of Blood was made. Rashomon, which gave us a whole new way of storytelling, was made in the 50s. So if you look at it from a global perspective, the 50s, look, all of these are going to be the golden age of cinema. You can always find great films, but the 50s is what gave us the 70s, 100%, because all of the filmmakers of the 70s are drawing from the international filmmaking community of the 50s.
All right, any points, Jen?
Love that answer.
You wouldn't, have you ever seen Scorsese's introduction to the Criterion disc of La Strada?
No, yeah, you have La Strada, by the way. Perhaps the most influential film of the time.
He talks so movingly and extemporaneously about so many movies, but his introduction on camera to Fellini's great film La Strada is just a must. It's 15 or 20 minutes, and he's talking with such passion and such eloquence about this film that touched him so deeply, and that could touch anybody so deeply. And you didn't mention Seven Samurai.
I did. Seven Samurai, by the way, which gave us then, I mean, endless remakes of it.
That we're still doing today.
And that we're still doing today because we can't catch, we're still chasing that dragon, which I think is the third time I've used that phrase tonight. Anyway, and then that's to say nothing of what was actually still happening in the United States, which it was a dark time, the House of Un-American Activities, but I think, again, that created some interesting films and some pushback. You started to see that paranoia play out in science fiction in a way that changed maybe how we do science fiction in things like War of the Worlds, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Then you have Singin' in the Rain came out in the 50s, and one of the greatest musical of all time. Your favorite movie?
Yeah, all good choices. And I hate to ding because I would listen to you guys all day, but we are under a time crunch, so I'm just trying to
Just so you know, half of my point goes to Leonard.
Wow, that's very kind.
So just
very
know
generous
that
of you.
as your
I will.
By the way,
all of the
Alicia,
points go to Leonard.
by the way, we're all right.
Yeah, you're all right. I know.
The three of us, we're all right.
And you just mentioned so many films that I hope people check out. Little plug for Filmstruck that I work on, who has the Criterion Collection. Check out La Strada and Scorsese's introduction there because it's incredible.
And Rashomon has been playing they've been doing it at the Laemmle NoHo if you're in LA. They
awesome.
did it a couple months ago. They're going to do it again because it was so popular.
And those films, Kurosawa especially, when I introduce them to younger people, they always love them because they have such great stories.
Yeah.
Jessie?
So mentally, you're both right, 70s and the 50s, but for my heart, it's the 30s.
Yeah.
It has to be. Again, it's thorough brainwashing. I love it. I absolutely love it. And so much of what I watch on repeat comes from that.
Yeah.
So.
Also many great points. And I mean, I think you guys are trying to seduce me.
Can I ask Leonard a
Aren't you?
question while you're figuring out the judging?
I'm doing my quote.
What do
Doing
you
my
think
quote.
the worst decade is?
Oh, well, probably the 60s for American film, with notable exceptions, of course. But that's when the Academy started voting for more foreign language films. They gave Sophia Loren the Best Actress Award, remember, for two women in the early 60s. An Italian actress in an Italian movie beat out all the Hollywood stars. What? Well, it's because things were kind of meager pickings here on the Hollywood home front. It's but if you haven't read Mark Harris's book, Pictures at a Revolution, it's must reading. It's about the 5 Oscar nominees of 1968, 4 of which are game changers leading into the 70s, and 1 of which is dragging behind. That's Dr. Dolittle to the 60s. And it's just a fascinating, wonderful read and very illuminating.
Wow. Well, so many great points, and I do feel like I'm learning so much today, and I'm so excited about it. But because he made such a great argument and he helped you out, Sasha,
Totally.
Lena gets the point.
Yay!
Oh, goodness.
So that means going into the
Lisa.
speed round, it is Roth and Leonard.
Oh my God.
So,
God.
Sasha, tomorrow is a new day, and you can help me judge
Happy
the
to.
speed round.
Happy to.
Because life moves pretty fast, and so does the speed round. Now you both know how this works. I will say a question that you guys haven't heard. Chime in with your answer as soon as you have it. In the case of an either-or
Hit
question,
a buzzer or something?
just
or
say it.
Okay.
Just say it verbally.
Can I just concede to Leonard and say that I'm embarrassed to have even been in this fight and it's awesome to have this conversation?
You don't want to give this a go?
No, you
I'll
have to
try.
do it. You have to do it.
Give it a go.
You gotta do
Give it a
it.
go.
It'll be fun.
Don't ease up on it. It's
It'll
okay.
be fun. So then, in the case of an
It's
either-or
you who
question,
stays up on me.
whoever answers first gets to go first. You get 20 seconds each, and then 10 seconds for rebuttal. So, are you ready? I'm going to
hope
get my
so.
little...
Maybe.
I
and
hope so.
Josie's going to help me out, and
fine.
Sasha's going to help me out
Okay.
too. I've got my stopwatch, so I'll look after the time. Ready. What is the best film noir?
Double Indemnity.
Oh, I think
unison.
Leonard said it
Leonard
first.
got it
No,
first.
no, we kind of said it in unison.
You guys did.
God, but it is double indemnity. But it is that. I concede.
Okay.
Just give us tell us why it is
Well,
the best.
because I just saw it again recently on a big screen downtown at the Last Remaining Seats series here in Los Angeles. And it was great to see on a big screen with an audience that just ate it up. It's got all the emblematic ingredients, I think, for a film noir. First off, it's got a script by Billy Wilder and Raymond Chandler, which ain't bad. It was not a happy marriage, apparently, in real life, but it resulted in this movie, which Wilder directed. Fred MacMurray is the patsy. There's got to be a patsy. The guy's got to be, as smart as he thinks he is, he's got to have a flaw. His flaw is that he falls hard for Barbara Stanwyck,
I love Barbara in this
who
film.
is incredible in it.
I want her hair.
That wig.
The wig and her glasses.
And the anklet.
Sunglasses. The anklet.
And he falls for her and agrees to go along with a crazy scheme that he knows to murder her husband that makes no sense because he's in the insurance business. And he really, really ought to know better. And he's going to be examined and judged and found out perhaps by his boss, played brilliantly by Edward G. Robinson, and one of his great performances. So you have, as I say, all these perfect things lined up. Dialogue that just snaps and crackles, great performances, a great atmosphere, great sense. That house, of course, is real and still exists, the house where she lives in the Hollywood Hills. And it just still plays. It still plays to an audience. I know I just saw it 6 months ago and saw how well it holds up.
Oh, I love it too. I love how civil this movie fights is. It's a nice change.
Just so I don't get fired from our boss, Andy Signor, can I make an argument, even though I concede that you're right, for either Maltese Falcon or Blade Runner?
Sure, choose one. Maltese?
Yeah, because you don't have double indemnity without the Maltese Falcon, right? But I'll make an argument for Blade Runner instead,
All right,
because
go for
it's
it.
saying it built on that genre, and I think beautifully exemplified it, but also twisted the idea of what the femme fatale is, and added science fiction. So I actually think it's a great film noir in addition to being an excellent science fiction film, but Leonard's right, so let's move on.
All right, they're both great arguments. Leonard gets
I
the
just don't want to
point.
get fired for not fighting.
And with that, congratulations, Leonard Moulton! Winner of our first movie fights. It's such a pleasure to have you here. And
Yay.
huge thank you to Sasha and Roth for joining us. Sasha, where can people find you online?
You can find me being humiliated by Leonard Maltin right here. Oh, that was so stressful. You can find me at Sasha Pearl Raver on Instagram and Twitter. You can see me hosting Screen Junkies News and on FX Movie Download every Friday at 8 p.m. on FX.
Leonard Moulton, Moulton on Movies. Where
Moulton on
else?
Movies podcast, which you can get on iTunes, where my daughter Jessie and I
Yeah,
enjoy
Jessie.
chatting about movies, often with wonderful and interesting guests. You can find me on Twitter at Leonard Maltin, and you can go to my website where I write about movies and about film books and DVDs and other things at leonardmaltin.com.
Nice. And Roth, Screen Junkies News.
You can find me on Screen Junkies News all of the time with these wonderful people. You can find me reading Leonard's book
Yeah, me too.
and learning and listening
Yay.
to the podcast and sweating here today and
Yes.
being very nervous and having a great time. That was amazing.
That
Thank
was
you.
so much fun.
Listening to Leonard Maltin for an hour is
So
the best.
much fun. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
People
very
can
much.
find you on Moulton on Movies.
They can find us. Nerdist is our home for Moulton on Movies, but basically, I'm just a member of the Moulton Empire. So I run our website, the LeonardMoulton.com website. He's also got a Facebook page and his Twitter.
Yay.
So yeah.
Oh, thank you guys. That was such a treat. Personally, I think it's my favorite episode now. I'm Alicia Malone. You can find me at Alicia Malone on Twitter, or if you want, on Filmstruck, the streaming service I'm one of the hosts on. That is run by the wonderful people at Criterion Collection and Turner Classic Movies. Definitely worth checking out if you want to learn more about movies. I definitely learned a lot here today. Thank you guys for joining us. Merry Christmas, Movie House. Happy holidays, everyone. And if you don't agree with me, well, nobody's perfect. Bye-bye.